Hey, Dave Paulides here for the Canine Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for our video page. Special edition tonight, and we're with someone from the Bigfoot world. And I usually don't associate with many people from that world, but one of the true nice guys. And I've known James for several years, and he happened to come over to the Vortex yesterday. We went out to dinner, and he politely, as nice of a guy as he is, he said he'd do a video with me. So
my pleasure. It's an honor.
Oh, James. Hey, thanks for being here, man.
My pleasure.
You know, the audience knows that I really don't associate much with the Bigfoot world because it's an angry bunch of people.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
It's a pretty dysfunctional family, if you want to call it extended family, like crazy uncles, crazy aunts.
Yeah, you've been involved in it for a long time.
Yeah, I didn't really get involved in I didn't really meet the other Bigfooters until like 98, 99.
Okay.
So I was by myself like the first 15 years.
Well, a lot of people don't know, but tell us exactly where you live.
Humboldt County on the coast there, outside of Eureka, right on the beach.
So far northern California.
Yeah.
And we ran into a lot of people we knew between us when I spent 2 years in Hoopa researching the Bigfoot topic as well.
Yeah.
And you spent a lot of time around Hoopa as well.
Yeah, I saw your NABS Jeep out there.
Did you?
Yeah.
You should have stopped by.
I heard you were a jerk.
Oh. Is that true?
Yeah.
Is it true that I'm a jerk?
No.
Oh. You know, and that's the problem with the Bigfoot world. They say all these things about it.
They don't like, if someone new gets some attention, they get really jealous. Like, I've been doing this forever, I should be getting the attention.
You know, and some people very close to you said some really bad things about me when I got started.
Yeah.
And when I came out with the Hoopa Project and Tribal Bigfoot, it garnered a lot of publicity, but some people didn't like what I had to say. But, so you know I've written 3 books about Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And I've written 10 books about missing people. And I don't bleed over the topic at all. In my books, you're not going to see things about Bigfoot and missing people.
Right.
The Bigfoot world kind of is their own thing. They like to think I'm implying that all these people are taken by Bigfoot. But the truth of the matter is, for 2 years when I was in Hoopa researching that topic, it was the rare day that I ever heard anything about a negative interaction or a threatening interaction with Bigfoot.
Right.
How about you?
Same thing. Just, there's the Tishtang village that got raided back like in 1700, whatever.
Tell us about that.
It's the furthest upriver, I guess furthest south village of the 7 villages that were along the Trinity River and the Hoopa Reservation. And Tishtang's, it's a camp, you can go there, you can camp, it's beautiful, it's my favorite swimming hole around there. Yeah. And so anyways, back in the day, the Bigfoots would come down from upper Tishtang, and they, I guess, raided and took 7 young girls and young women and took them back up the mountain, and they abandoned that village, and no one ever lived there again for the last several hundred years.
So people that don't know, as you're coming from Willow Creek into Hoopa, Tishtang's going to be on your right.
Yeah.
And you're going to have the Trinity River that flows into the Klamath River, and then the Klamath River goes to the coast. And I got to tell you, I've actually fished Tishtang before. Mm-hmm. And one time I hooked into either a steelhead or a salmon, and I played that thing for 40 minutes, and then the line broke. But that is just an awesome section. You can drive up along the riverbank on the opposite side.
Yeah. If you have permission.
Well, I was with some natives.
Yeah.
But no, it's a gorgeous area.
That's where Al Hodgson got his famous track.
That's right.
I swam over there after he got that and walked where the plaster was, where he'd cast it, the plaster on the holes in the ground.
People that don't know, Al owned a business in Willow Creek, and he was really one of the first time Bigfooters from decades ago that got interested in the topic, and he actually went up to Bluff Creek a bunch of times. And
he's the first guy Roger and Bob went to when they got the film.
That's right. Yeah. And a lot of people don't know this, but when I was involved in the DNA project, the first validated sample of DNA came from Al.
Yeah.
And it came from a house in Hoopa.
I I got a couple of those hairs myself, actually.
Do you really?
They're given to me, yeah.
Interesting. So, a lot of people are going to have questions. You spent how many years on finding Bigfoot?
I think it was 8.5, and then we're started up again.
And how's it going now?
I guess we're killing it on the streaming service. We're not on. They're going to put us on Animal Planet, and we'll be on Animal Planet, Discovery, Travel, and Destination America when they start. But they're trying to get people used to switching over to the streaming because that's it's happening anyways. People are mad about it. I don't blame them, but it's going to be cheaper in the long run as long as you have good. But if you don't have good internet like me, it's not all that great.
Is the quality of the production same as it was before?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I mean, the budgets are cut, and then with the COVID restrictions, like only 2 people per vehicle instead of 4. You see double your rental costs and fuel costs. I mean, so our expenses are up, and then the budget's way down. So it's we have less camera guy. We have one less camera guy and one less producer.
Is the targeted angle of the show the same as it was before?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
You guys going into the field, banging on trees, yelling. You do a good yell, by the way.
I did. I'm pretty shot now, but yeah, I mean, I don't really do that. I mean, I did. That's a great way if you live somewhere like and you have a habituation, so that's the wrong thing to do, probably. But for us, like just trying to stir up action in a couple nights, it's the most effective way to get something. Something.
Is Renee back?
Yeah.
Is she still playing that role where, I don't really believe it?
She thinks it's a spirit animal.
A spirit animal?
Yeah.
Meaning what?
That it's a paranormal entity.
Okay. And Cliff kind of believes it's an ape gorilla, right?
No, he thinks it's a hominid.
Hominid?
He thinks it's probably, most likely Australopithecus.
Okay.
Like a scaled up version.
What do you think?
I'm a fence rider, It's I know there's a physical 3-dimensional being that craps, eats, has young, gets territorial. Then I wonder, I've had experiences out in the woods that would be classified as paranormal, or I call it pre-normal just because we don't understand it yet, but I don't think it's I think it's normal, it's just we don't see it all that much.
So a lot of people in the Bigfoot world and a lot of people in the hiking world have come to me and talked to me about seeing orbs in the forest.
Yeah.
Like a basketball glowing, floating around. You ever seen anything like that?
Yeah, my best sighting in New Mexico was on the Hickory Apache Reservation in 2004. I didn't know I was watching the Bigfoot till it was over. I thought I was one of the guys with us, this Green Beret Colonel guy that would get all, it was, we were at 7,500 feet, it would get below freezing at night, and he'd get all dressed up, bundled up, he'd put on 2 parkas and then a black rain poncho over himself and go out with his night shot camera and try to get something on camera. And so I thought it was him walking around. We had a bait tent where we kept all the food bait. We're in this long valley and of Southern Rock. I guess it's Southern Rockies, yeah. It's part of the Rockies, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, it's the Continental Divide. Yeah, so anyways.
Come on, you're college educated, aren't you?
Sort of. Humboldt State.
Humboldt State.
Take it for what it's worth. But yeah, I watched this Bigfoot.
Hey, wait a minute, you're the slug.
That's Santa Cruz. We're the lumberjacks.
Oh, the lumberjacks. Oh, sorry about that.
They're getting ready to change that one though because it's not politically correct.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Anyways, yeah. So that night, I think that was the first night I saw orbs, and they weren't real close. They were like orange and yellow. It was just before a huge. Well, I saw. So after this happened, I was tripping out on it. Like, cause I went back to the campfire. There's 5 of us, and everyone was there, and they were like, "Why were you throwing pebbles at us?" And I watched this thing go back from the bait tent to the only female with us. She had her own tent set away from everyone else next to the bait tent. It was walking back and forth like this. I kind of started looking at the ground, and it would kneel down and go where the zippers were and like take its nails and scratch up and down the tent. Like I thought I was looking for the zipper or something. But I was wondering why he didn't turn his light on and just see it. And the moon was coming up over the mesas and stuff over on this side. And just about a minute or two before the moon light hit where that thing was, it just stopped. And we had all this infrared cameras pointed at the tree line, like it's about that far away or closer. So we had all our stuff, and it walked 250 yards through an open field the opposite way. And went
avoid it?
Yeah. So it went out in the open, and then I walked back and It's like, oh my God, then we did a size comparison. It was about 6'9", 7 foot, somewhere in there, about 400 pounds, maybe 350.
So do you see some relationship between the orbs and sightings?
Well, I must have been 8-10 miles down. There was a storm front coming in, and I'm looking at this green ball of light, like giant, miles and miles away, and then I was yelling for people to get up and look, and then right then it started raining. It poured for about 5 minutes at first, and then I went back up to where I had seen it, and I was just sitting there kind of like, taking mental notes of where I was, where it was, and then I see these two orangey yellow balls come up over the ridge that was, I don't know, a quarter mile away, and they went like, not exactly in parallel, but they went and then shot up and then shot down and went down, and I lost sight of them behind the trees. But then my most compelling one was up in above Bluff Creek up in there by those Indian burial grounds. And Cliff and I had been out. We had been walking just Thurman, and we came back to camp. It still trips me out. We heard one coming down the hill and towards the camp, and it just crunched, stomping and branches breaking. And then there's thick bushes there, and I was tiptoeing. I could see over it, and I could hear where the sounds come from. And all of a sudden, I see this blue basketball floating through the trees, and I was talking to him, is that? Because I couldn't comprehend it. I was thinking, is that a plane? But there's a mountain there. So is it a helicopter? But there's a hill like 50 yards behind it. And I saw it go in front of a tree. And it was correlating exactly with the crunching, breaking sounds.
So the orb is right where the crunching, breaking sounds are coming from.
Yeah.
How could that be?
I don't know, man. I'm not a quantum physicist. But it was pretty. I was tripped out, and then later on, I felt like I got infrasounded or something. Later on that night, my arm started flapping up and down, kind of like, it was really, really strange. It was like moving on its own. It felt like, and I felt like I was getting bombarded like with a laser or something. You just feel like energy coming right at me, which was pretty strange. And then the next morning, Yams and Bob Strange showed up, and so we were talking to them, and we were getting ready for the day to go hiking, whatever, and all of a sudden, this old beat-up truck comes pulling up, and it's Charlie Tom. I
know Charlie.
North America is the heaviest medicine man on the whole continent. That's what all the natives said.
Right.
And his power came from, he had the hair from 5 Bigfoots he kept in his back pocket in the ball. That's where he got his mana, his strong medicine.
So, the channel is about missing people.
Okay.
But I don't hide the fact that, for 2 years out of my life, I did everything I could to understand this Bigfoot issue. And a lot of the people, the vast majority here, probably know very little about Bigfoot and the topic. And there's a lot of pessimists out there. Now, what do you do when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, you acted real good in that, but there's no real evidence. Why should I even believe it?
That shows they know nothing about the subject. They say there's no real evidence. There's plenty of evidence. I mean, you got the footprint cast with the dermal ridges, and just the whole, like, what do they call it?
Explain what dermal ridges are.
Like your fingerprints you have on your feet also, like your toes and bottom of your soles of your feet, just like your palm does in your hands. And so you got, and then also just the foot articulation, the motion of it, the double ball, the mid-tarsal break, or the transversal arch, they call it, I guess. And the foot anatomy, the Bossberg cats with the broken feet, like, I just talked to Dr. Meldrum for a couple hours. The foot anatomy, that was some primate locomotion that we evolved to walk on 2 feet, Idaho State. And so like just the whole, like that Bossberg, it's that crippled foot they call it, where the foot's been mangled and broken. And that one, that when he shows it at conferences, when he shows it to podiatrists, they get, like, foot experts are like, that all makes total sense for a large biped. There's the auto recording Sierra sounds been analyzed. PG film.
Patterson-Gimlin film. What do you think about that? Real or fake?
100%.
100% real. A lot of people don't know that film was presented to Disney at the time.
Right.
And one of the VPs of production of Disney at the time that made the movie says, we could never have made a costume that moved and articulated and showed muscles like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. when you dig into that film, the more technology that's been thrown out, the more in-depth analysis, the stronger it gets.
Right.
Bill Munns' report.
So, what about the DNA report?
That's what I'm going to ask you about.
So 110 samples, nuclear and mitochondrial DNA. It was tested by 4 independent labs, all certified labs. One of them came from the University of Texas. It was all submitted to the World Body for DNA. It's called GenBank.
Yeah.
And they had never seen that DNA before. And they said that part of the DNA came from a human and part of it has never been recorded before. And it was consistent with all of the DNA samples. So if it was all human, it would have come from us. And then there are markers within the DNA that show if it could be contaminated or not. And they get a score. Right. And the score on all of the samples was so high that it was essentially impossible for it to be manipulated or for it to be contaminated. That's what a lot of people don't know.
Well, how come this isn't like known by everybody?
So a lot of people ask me that question, and the journal Nature was all on board to publish everything about this. And 4 PhDs wrote a white paper about it. And it's on our website, nabigfootsearch.com. And that paper, as soon as they figured out that part of it was an unknown, Nature didn't want anything to do with it anymore. They just completely dropped the ball. If you look at Scott Carpenter, if you Google Scott Carpenter Bigfoot, you go to his website, and he has all the copyrighted pages going back and forth between the PhDs and Nature. And it is not a healthy conversation. Nature did not play cleanly.
Okay.
And I think that it leads to a question that people are uncomfortable with, that how could something be on this earth that's never been classified before that's that big? And is it possible that this is somehow manipulated DNA? And that's really the big question.
It wouldn't shock me. I mean, because like I was that Charlie Tom story, when Charlie Tom came up, we started talking, he said, "What are you doing? Looking for Bigfoot?" I said, "Yeah, looking for Bigfoot." And he goes, "Yep." And we were standing at the Sweat Lodge camp. We were standing right there, and he goes, "My second wife, she's a white woman, laughed and didn't believe in Bigfoot. I brought her up here, right here, and I called to him, and she went out, she was looking at the creek, and here comes old Bigfoot stomping up the creek, and she didn't believe it." And I said, and she just laughed and said, "That's not a Bigfoot." And then I said, "Well, what did it look like?" He goes, "Well, it was traveling, so it was a big blue ball of light."
So I've probably interviewed with Harvey Pratt at least 8 different Native American tribes and elders, and they all hold the same view. It's physical, but it's also spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from that world up there, and they have utmost respect. But there isn't one tribe I've ever talked to, when I asked them straight up front, is this some kind of ape or gorilla? They took it as an insult when we talked that. And they always believed that it was very intelligent, spiritual, and they highly respected it.
Yeah.
And the people I talked to that were in the woods, that I don't want to call it a confrontation, but like they came face to face coming around a mountain, they always said they would hold their hands out, they would talk to it. If they had something, they would share it. Like if they were picking mushrooms or berries, they'd leave half of it for them and they'd back up and walk away.
Right.
Have you heard similar
they still, I mean, Inker, leaves this whole bucket of mushrooms or berries or whatever. I mean, you hear that all the time. It's interesting because I've traveled all around North America several times, talked to tribes from Florida to New York to Washington, all across. And every one of them tells you they're people, they're wild. Then you go to South America, where they have the Mapinguari, and every one of the tribes down there, that we've talked to, everyone that people I know have researched down there, they'll refer to it as an animal. It's a different. It's upright walking biped primate, but it's more like an upright orangutan or something like that. Even though it looks kind of like a Bigfoot. And then when we went to Asia, you get up in the north, like Siberia, and through there, and the Almasties and Yeren that one's on the line, but like in Vietnam, those ones they call the rock apes.
Oh yeah.
Like everyone there says they're an animal. In South Indonesia, down through Myanmar and all that, they all say it's an animal. Every tribe down there says it's a large primate. But you get up north, northern latitudes like equal with Canada and those latitudes, it's a type of man.
So it's almost like in North America we're dealing with something that's different.
Yeah.
Is that your perception?
I think so. Well, the Russians kind of report the same thing. They might have actual Neanderthals. They probably still have Neanderthals over there. I think there's at least 4 or 5 undiscovered upright walking hominoids.
So one of the questions I always get from people.
Sorry, Dave.
One of the questions I get is, well, Dave, how come we don't find bones and things? And my answer is, I'm in the woods a lot, like you were. And it's very, very rare to ever come across a deer skeleton that's intact. And the thousands of bears there are in the U.S., I've never seen an intact bear skeleton. So to think how rare a Bigfoot would be, the opportunity to see a full Bigfoot skeleton is almost not realistic.
Well, because large primates, like we're a large primate, in the wild live at least 35 is average, but in captivity, like gorillas live 50, 55 years. So in Sasquatch, whatever it is, it's a large hominin. So you figure if they live 50 years, say on average, and they estimate that in Oregon there's 300 of them. So if they live to be 50, that means there's 6 per year dying. And I'm 100% convinced they carry off their dead. If they're around, they'll take them away and stash them in a cave, bury them, whatever. And so if there's 6 a year dying, and on steep mountainsides where there's no trails, no roads, because the animals, when they know they're going to die, they crawl away and curl up somewhere. Like thick brush is the most common place for them to go, the thickest brush they can find. So if 6 of those die per year, and then it's not a good. North America's not a great place to make fossils with the current vegetation and all that. So, yeah, and plus also if you did, but coyotes start scattering it and porcupines, and they now know deer and elk eat bones. I just found that out recently. And squirrels, they're all chewing these things. And unless you saw a skull, I've seen bones. I'm like, I don't know, is that a moose, a cow, a horse, or a Bigfoot femur? I don't know, I'm not an anatomist, like zoologist. So unless you saw a skull, you probably wouldn't even know what you're looking at. Seeing a random couple ribs or maybe a pelvis would stand out or something like that. But
I was talking to a couple of elders one time, and this topic came up, and one spoke up and said, "Oh, my grandfather said that he saw like a family, like you said, bury one, and then 2 of them picked up, and he said it was like the size of a house, just pushed this giant boulder over the top of the graves,
right,
so nobody would ever bother it."
Yeah.
You heard that?
Oh yeah. My buddy, he's convinced. I think he did probably 2, found some grave sites. He's this guy Manny. He passed away a few years ago. He was doing a whole year out in the woods without coming to town. His dad every 6 weeks was bringing him a supply and dropping it off, but he broke his leg out in the blizzard and he got hypothermia and died. Ended up dying out there in East Oregon. But anyways, I went with him back in probably 2004, 2003. My buddy Tintin, this big Hawaiian guy, came over, first time camping in the mainland and stuff like that. We took him out looking for Bigfoot graves in East Oregon, but I was on the backside of the Cascades, and what he found was these 10 foot long by 4 foot wide hole that went down about almost 4 foot deep in the middle, and it was dug out by hands. Each finger was about the size of 2 of ours put together. And you can see like where the nails dug in and where the hole they dug out. And that was all, there's a big mound of dirt. It shoveled it all one way. It was all at the foot or the head of it. And then next to it, kind of like, so this is this way, and then it kind of angled like this. There was one, it was the same size, but it was loose packed dirt over it. And there was a third one out to the side that was even a little bit bigger. And it had a 3 foot high mound of dirt over it, but a rock that you said was massive, that you had to have heavy machinery. You could take the Oakland Raiders offensive line and have them try to pick it up and move it. They couldn't. It was just massive. It was just on top of that dirt. And he said he was freaked out, and there was tree, and his branches started snapping around him and getting the growls, and he took off out of there. But we could never find it again.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, I've heard tons of stories about them, put them in caves, and we know they carry them off because I've talked to people. I'm convinced. I believe they shot them, killed them, and the bodies always disappear by morning.
It's almost as though if somebody's on a trail and you see one, it's like maybe they're the scout, but there's a whole bunch behind them.
Usually.
And then if something happens to that front one, then the back guys are going to come up and grab it.
Right. And I think I was saying this last night. I've talked to 7 people that I believe shot and killed them, and none of them suffered any retaliation, except for one. He got charged by the other one, but the other ones, he saw multiple. There was the family group all together, and he said they didn't act that concerned. And my friends down on the Hickory Apache Reservation down in New Mexico at Four Corners, they had the family, they live in, it's like town for them, but it's just like 3 blocks in the middle of the high desert wilderness, and they're on the edge, and there was a big dog fight going outside. Res dogs, packs of dogs fight, and so they went out there, and they said they were going crazy. Like they couldn't break them up. They're getting the hoses out, and everyone's out there yelling and kicking them and pulling them apart. And there was this Rottweiler where they couldn't get off, and it had one of the dogs. It was at a carport, and there was a car there, and the dog had something wedged underneath the side of the car, and when they finally got the Rottweiler off it, and they said all of a sudden they thought it was a bear, and it staggers to his feet, and it was one of the twin. They had seen a large female, like most females usually between 6 to 7. They said this one was about 8 foot, and she had the breasts and all that, and she had 2 10-year-old human-sized twin boys. And I've heard 4 accounts of identical twin Bigfoots, which makes sense,
So where was this when the dogs were fighting?
It was getting attacked. All the dogs weren't even really fighting each other so much as trying to all attack that thing. And then it stands to its feet, and they said it looked like it was about to die. It was ripped open, blood streaming, and it staggered off towards them. It was walking off towards the mountain, and the mom was standing in the shadows right there just watching, and the other twin, they're 30 feet away. She didn't raise a finger to help him, didn't do anything. And then they turned, before he even got to it, they turned and walked off, and he was limping behind him, staggering behind him, and the people went crazy. They started yelling. They're going to try to go kill it because the Apaches will kill him. They're like one of the only tribes I know that'll try to kill him.
So that brings up a good question. Just because I'm interested, do you think that somebody should try to kill one?
I was always super anti-no, and I don't think so. I think it's morally wrong, but I understand. I don't condemn the people that I used to talk smack on the people that are trying to kill him. Like I always said, if you want to kill one, you don't understand them, you don't get it. But now I kind of understand. Like, well, if I think they're sentient beings, whatever they are. If they're just 3-dimensional, like just undiscovered hominin, whatever, then I think that'd be a little more justifiable. But if they're like these spiritual entities, I'm actually going to go to Area X, I think, this summer. I got invited to go out there with those guys that are hunting one. So I might go out there, but I wouldn't be trying to shoot one or anything. I'd just be trying to film them. But I think with the DNA, with a good DNA that they can, chain it, I don't know if that's going to work. If you guys did that, it didn't work. I don't know what's going to happen now. But if they could, I think with good footage and DNA, I think we could get the funding to start studying them and really document them. You don't have to have a type of specimen. I mean, it helps.
So let me throw this at you. When we did it, we had several $100,000 in funding,
right,
to do the testing, because back then it was really expensive.
Right.
But my question, and I've said this publicly many times, why does it take a bunch of yo-hos like me, who knows nothing really about DNA and genetics, and I knew nothing about Bigfoot before I went to Hoopa, why me and my group do all of this testing and all of this collecting? What about a guy like Meldrum or somebody in that academic community wanted to get a grant and go do the DNA themselves?
He is. We're doing that right now.
They are?
Yeah.
Now what if it matches what we have?
That'd be awesome.
Would he even make it public?
He would. none of the Bigfooters I know are involved in any conspiracy to cover up. I mean, sometimes you think like this guy's such a. I mean, I've seen guys that are they do such stupid things. You think, are you trying to like make us not film one? You know, but I know they're not government agents because I know the guy's like pumps gas, you know, or whatever, and lives with his mom, or just, you know, but like there's Murphy's Law is nothing. Squatcher's Law is 10 times worse. It was like Joe, you know, from the Vortex.
Joe Hauser?
Yeah, he saw 2 Bigfoots walking through the snow, plowing through. The only time he didn't have his camera with him, some German tourist with a big telescope lens gets clear. He got to see the digital pictures right after he took them, and that guy just disappeared back to Germany. Those pictures are never seen. I mean, it's just you hear these stories non-stop. But I think there's a Meldrum's in touch with, like, you know, at least 4 or 5 dozen qualified PhDs that are really interested, but they don't want to commit career suicide.
Yeah.
Not all, but I mean, he's got like, what, 14, 15 PhDs published on the Relic Hominid Inquiry, that scientific journal that they do. That's if you haven't seen that, the RHI at Idaho State, they got some great papers in there. But the guy that did this, I can't remember, he's a New Zealand geneticist that discovered the eel species with the eDNA at Loch Ness, and he discovered that never before DNA from they don't know if it's one giant eel or a bunch of little eels, but it's never been seen before. But that guy, that's the guy, his team's gonna be working on some of the DNA samples.
Well, that's good. And, you know, it's been a number of years since we did ours, and in part of my mind, I was surprised that no academic person jumped in to do it since. If Meldrum's doing it now, I'm happy, but I know in my mind 100% accurate those tests were right on key, just because 4 different labs did it, independent tested. They used automated DNA testing equipment from the Louisiana State Crime Lab, allowed us to use their equipment. So I know that it was just rock solid, and the people just don't want to accept it. I know nature didn't want it.
And they sequenced full genomes.
Yeah.
They were able to get all the complete strands.
I think we got to 99.9% nuclear on 3 samples, and they all were the same. I mean, 110 samples came from different parts of the U.S.
Right.
Blood, we have blood. We had a tissue sample. We had saliva. Rich Germone had one come up and lick a camera.
Yeah.
And there was one, I think it was in Arizona or New Mexico, where one broke a pipe with its fist.
Going for like a raccoon or a rabbit or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And it cut its hand. Mm-hmm. And so we got blood off of that. And there was another one, there was blood on a gutter high up on a house. But no, it's...
But why did Melba destroy all the samples when she was...
She didn't.
Then where are they?
She has them.
She does?
Yeah, she has a lot of them. And then they used a lot of the samples for secondary testing because, again, there are 4 PhDs that Melba had to convince.
Right.
And they all wanted to see for themselves. And that's why all 4 of them wrote that paper together, because they all went through this process of believing. And like you and I can sit here and philosophically talk about it, but let's say we had a tissue sample in front of us and I took the sample away and tested it. You'd want to walk through the sample yourself and watch the testing process and ensure it was done correctly.
And I'd like to say it doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter jack shit in this matter because I'm not trained in any of that stuff. But I find it super fascinating, and I want to see I want to get to the bottom of it. You know, whatever it is, like whatever the end result is, I'm just dying to know.
You know, people ask me, they said, well, Dave, have you seen any really good footage? Well, now making 2 documentaries and seeing how special effects works, I really, honestly, I wouldn't believe any footage today.
Right.
Because
unless it's on film.
Well, unless it's on hard film.
Right. Not digital.
Right. Because it can be so manipulated.
Yeah.
And really, that's the power of the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Right. Exactly.
And I think a lot of people look at it and they're thinking of digital film now and how it could be manipulated. And the reality is, back then you couldn't.
No.
A couple old cowboys on the trail. Think of the luck of that. And how long that Bigfoot stayed in frame.
It's not even so much the luck as the fact that Roger was a gymnast. You know, he was an incredible athlete. He was a rodeo rider. And he practiced out he figured that his horse would act crazy. He had actually practiced like his horse bucking and getting the camera out of the saddlebag and filming.
We're talking about Roger Patterson riding a horse down into this Bluff Creek gravel area. Horse kind of goes crazy.
Yeah.
He gets out, camera goes crazy.
So the horse reared back so far, it fell over and fell on Roger, and as the horse was scrambling back up, he got the camera out and started running and filming right like that fast.
But you know, can you imagine all of the, this is the other part that I explain at conferences. How many people in 1967 were in the woods and had the ability to film? 1 out of 10,000?
Almost none.
Almost none.
And he had a high quality camera. That wasn't some junk camera.
No. What percentage of people today have that ability?
90% with a camera. You're talking like a phone?
Like a phone.
Yeah.
Almost everybody could film video.
Right.
But we've never been able to duplicate that Patterson-Gimlin film.
It's just like Patty's tracks. Never seen again after that. Like once she was never, because her tracks were found around up there, you know, for several years, and then nothing. Pooh, she was never seen again. Never, no tracks ever again.
Where'd she go?
I don't know. You remember Phil from Bluff Creek Lodge?
You know, he died.
Yeah, I know.
You know, so there was a guy who...
He always said a UFO came in. He said he saw the UFO fly up there and drop down into Bluff Creek.
So what he's talking about, there's a place called Bluff Creek Resort. And it's like a series of lodges and pull your trailer in. It was pretty nice at one time. And the guy who ran it was this guy named Phil. And he actually gave me a bear skull that I have at home. Pretty big black bear skull. And I was up there one day and I had to leave for a couple of weeks, and I came back and they had a big windstorm. And a tree fell over and killed him.
Yeah.
I was bummed. He was a nice guy.
Oh, he was awake. Yeah, I'd stop in and see him when I was up there sometimes. You know, pop in. But yeah, he was convinced that, he said they're not up there anymore. The UFOs took him away. That's what he always said. He goes, I saw the UFO fly up in there and go up the canyon, and I'm sure that's why they disappeared.
He told me that several times he heard one yell from this mountain, one yell from this mountain, and then another one yell, and they'd continue to yell. And he said, I thought they were going to be in my backyard sometimes.
They like triangulate coordinates to meet together yelling. I've heard those, I don't know if they're the same ones, but in the same area, I've heard those same screams and yells, and yeah, it's they're there.
One time I was there, and he took me across the Klamath on a rowboat.
I did that.
Did you?
Yeah.
So that area is protected over there. You're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And we went over there, and that's probably the one area in 2 years I just did not feel right.
It's a hair on the neck place.
Yeah.
And you can feel it when you drive by. I always like, I wish I could get back in there like more easily, you know.
Yeah, there's not an easy way to get there.
No, you can go to the fire lookout, then it's like a 3,000 foot drop down, like stuff like this.
We spent probably 8 hours walking around back there, and we came to this one spot. There was this giant boulder, almost like a big piece of quartz. And I've never seen this. There were probably 50 scat piles from bear. Almost all around that thing. I've never seen that.
It is weird.
It was. He even said, he goes, oh, that's odd.
Never seen that.
Oh, it was almost about that quartz rock. But it was in that protected area too, so I wasn't comfortable at all being there.
It's a heebie-jeebie spot for sure.
So when somebody does come up to you and challenges you and says, well, Bobo, you know, where's the body?
Good question. I mean, I can't explain that. I mean, I can and I can't. I mean, they're very rare. They're nocturnal. Most people aren't prepared. And I think hunters should shoot them, and hunters do shoot them. People shoot at them all the time, especially like in the South. You always hear those guys like, oh man, I shot that thing. It came around. I blasted every time, you know. And it's not so much like that other places, you know. And the other thing is that if you're a hunter, you're trained from day one. Do not shoot anything walking on two legs. Be a guy wearing like fur coat or whatever. And I've talked to hundreds, maybe 1,000, probably 1,000 hunters that looked at it in the scope. They said they could be in a tree stand and the thing will at 200 yards just turn and look right at them, look right in the scope. They say there's an intelligence there that they couldn't pull the trigger.
So there's and you know these guys too, a couple of researchers from Pennsylvania. I went to a conference and we were talking, and I said, well, tell me about these stories that I hear about up here where people say, point blank, they're on the doorstep and some old lady with a double-aught buck just levels both barrels at it and just disappears. It was Dave, 80 years old, sharp as a tack. That's what she said. And he goes, I looked right in her eyes. I believed her.
I don't disbelieve those people. I mean, I was telling you that story about the guys that were guarding the water reservoirs and the gun sites overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge in World War II. The guy shot it 7 times with a 30-06 point blank, and it just kept walking right out and didn't even flinch, didn't make a sound. Until it yelled at him when he started running, it screamed at him.
So under those circumstances, you almost think, is this, am I really seeing something that's physical on Earth? And then part of you says, yeah, because they leave tracks, or they leave hair. But then in our world, if you shoot something with that big of a gun, it's going to stop, or it's going to fall, or it's going to be dead.
Yeah, I wonder, like, just like you'd have some monastic monk up in the Himalayas, they can go out there and spend his whole life being a spiritual being, and they can go up there and chant and wear a bed sheet in 20 below zero for 24 hours in a cave on 15,000 feet up and keep their body temperature at the same temperature just chanting, versus like someone like me sitting at home and watching football on Sunday. I'm not making my mind strong in that field. So maybe some are, I think they're individual personalities like we are, like they're not just this one, they all act the same. Like you got chemically imbalanced crazy ones maybe, or ones that just had such bad interactions with humans that their parents getting shot or they've been shot, and like they're meaner, and some of the ones are real mellow.
So right now we're at the Montana Vortex.
Yeah.
And
that place is great. That blew my mind.
You went inside.
I thought I was just like fun house stuff, like some of those cheesy roadside ones, and it defies explanation. I mean, it happened right in front of my face.
I brought so many people in here who came here with that belief that it's a roadside attraction, and then they come out and they go, "Oh my God, what was that?"
It just blew. It really blew my. I'm still blown away.
So a lot of people say there's some kind of portal here that opens and closes. Now, have you been in other parts of the country where they thought that there was some portal that was related to Bigfoot?
Yeah, Oregon caves, Southern Oregon. People say that for sure.
It's related to Bigfoot.
Yeah.
How is it related?
I think you get into that parallel universe, quantum mechanics. Like,
well, explain it, Bo.
It's above my pay. I listen to guys on Joe Rogan explain that stuff.
Ron Moorhead is good at that.
Yeah, but then I was reading the guy they consider the top guy in the field of quantum mechanics goes, anyone that says they understand it's not true, because he goes, I don't even understand it. He goes, I have thoughts, but I don't have a true comprehension of it. I mean, I get the gist of it, and before I even heard the word parallel universe or quantum mechanics or any of that kind of stuff, just when you talk to the natives about the spirit world, and my family, like my last name is Fay, and we were like basically the medicine men of the Celtic tribes in Ireland. Like Fay was a bad name when the Catholics and the Christians came, because it translated kind of like evil elf, something like that. And so, but yeah, we were kind of like the spiritual people over there. So I think maybe it's in my blood, but it always made sense to me when they talk about walking in both worlds. And they intersect at times, or they can go back and forth.
And I've heard that from a lot of people, and talking to Ron a lot. I think the mystery is, how's that door open and close?
I understand like the whole thing. We're just vibrational, subatomic particles that held together by electrical charges, and everything's vibration and frequency. So I always just thought maybe they could just vibrate a certain way, maybe.
Well, Joe and I were talking here the other day, and he was explaining when he's got some cameras up there that when certain things happen, we're trying to work through our minds. Okay, what was the temperature consistent? Is the lighting consistent? Is the humidity consistent? You know, what's the commonality that opens those doors? I really don't know.
You know, one respected researcher I know, I'll tell you off camera because he doesn't go public with it, but he was at the Southern Oregon Caves, and that was like obviously Matt Johnson's area, kind of nutty guy, whatever, but he was there and he saw these black entities come out of the portal. He saw the portal, like the whole shimmering, like purpley, wavy, like Predator, looking like the Predator in the Schwarzenegger movie, kind of pixelated things coming out. They'd come out and they were saw these little black creature things. They weren't Bigfoots. They were real aggressive. Kind of, they could only keep them away with flashlights. You had to shine a bright light on them. They'd squeal and run away. And they went back through the portal and left. And the portal closed. And this guy was like, you know, he's PhD level, science-based guy. And when he told me that, I was like, because I've heard other people say they've seen that stuff, but never like, it wasn't someone I knew as well as I knew this guy was as qualified academically as this guy. And just having a PhD doesn't mean like you're smart. I mean, I guess you're smarter maybe. But you know what I mean? Like, someone I trust them, you know?
So what about some of the other Bigfoot shows that are out there right now? What do you think of them? You're very polite.
I wish they would have shown the same gumption we did when they told us to fake stuff or go along with, like, go along with the storyline. I wish they'd stand their ground and say, no, we're not going to do that because it's not actually what happened, or it's not the reality of how this evidence was collected. Or so I know that I guess he goes by Sage on the show, Russ, on the Expedition Bigfoot, that I know guys that worked on our show work on that show too. They said, yeah, those tracks he found were legit. He really found, I don't know if that aired yet or not.
So, have you ever been asked to fake something for film?
Oh yeah, it was a war the first season on the show. They edited the first two episodes of Finding Bigfoot. They edited it totally fake. Like, and when I saw that, I flipped out. They'd already cut the whole show when it started airing. And I flipped out when I saw those, and Matt and Cliff too, but I lost it. I quit. I was like, F you guys, I'm going public with this. You guys are faking all this. This is bull. And they, for instance, like the one where Matt goes, there's something on the hill. And he chases after it.
Yeah.
After he had like 8 Red Bulls. In the show they showed us Matt's chasing a Bigfoot. Well, it's Matt running after it took off, it just hauled ass out of there. And then Cliff's running after Matt. And there's a camera guy behind it, so that they edited it. The storyline was that's the Bigfoot on therm. They're like, why don't you guys measure it? Why don't you guys? Because we never filmed it. What happened was it rained, then it got down to 18 degrees, and all the barrel connectors froze on the. That's when we saw it. We had external recording DVRs for the therms, and the barrel connectors had ice in them. They weren't connected. And we were telling Matt, he was just frothing like, "There's a drunk hillbilly up there." We're like, we thought it was a Bigfoot because he goes, who goes there? And the thing froze on one. You know, people talk about they freeze on one foot and just it froze on one foot with one leg out like this, and didn't move until Matt. And Matt starts. All we had to do was get the ice out. If we waited 5 seconds, it would have all been recorded. But I was holding on to his packet. He just bursts out and chases after it, and it was just gone so fast. We were watching it on like a couple different therms.
So the short answer is you've been asked to fake stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean. It was a battle from the get-go.
So what are you and
they said we had to find? They said we had to have a Bigfoot encounter every week. We had to find evidence every week, and I was like, "That's not big. We might go 4 or 5 weeks with nothing."
Well, the problem too is that you don't stay in a spot long enough.
Right.
That's a big problem.
But that's what people are like. You guys are idiots. You guys are such jackasses. It's like, dude, we're not the jackass. You are. You have to have film permits for certain dates. If nothing happens, okay, so now we have to go to the next location. Well, you didn't reserve any rooms, you didn't reserve any rental vehicles, you don't have film permits, you don't have the proper, whatever, your catering lined up, your food services, whatever. I mean, so I understood like why we had to leave, but I'm still waiting for like a really good show. Like Survivor Man, Les came the closest, but even he was still the same format that we did, going for a few days, knock around, bail. I mean, I'm sure he could stay if he wanted to, but he's had a film schedule too, you know. He had a schedule he kind of went with.
I don't even know if people know this, but I worked with Les on that Bigfoot show for a while. In fact, I was his location coordinator in Hoopa.
Okay.
And then I worked with him at Great Smoky Mountain National Park when he went in there.
Oh, with Scott. Was you with Scott on that?
Yep.
I never saw that one.
That was a pretty good one.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, his crew and him, professional.
Right.
Permits, things lined up before you get there.
Yeah.
I don't understand crews that work on the fly like that. And then asking you to phony up stuff, that's...
Well, because they were working on a pretty popular show before our show, the production company and the team they had the same, his team come with us. We got rid of them by the third episode, they were all gone. They're saying, we have a hit show because we fake stuff every episode. Like, we find something every episode. We're like, well, we're not doing fakes. If we find nothing, we find nothing. That's just the way it goes. Find out a way to make it interesting. Yeah. That's why they had us. We didn't always have to like take a hot air balloon. That was cool taking a hot air balloon, but like, we didn't have to always take some mode of transportation. They always wanted us. One of the concessions we made was, okay, we'll go along with. We had to take this whatever form of transportation it is because there had to be something in the show.
Yeah. But you guys were always in like a black Suburban.
Right.
Always.
Or silver.
Yeah, or silver. Yeah. Didn't matter what part of the country.
Yeah. Well, they try to have continuity.
And then all four of you are together, driving along. Look like you're so happy together.
Dude, we spent 8.5 years in the same car together. We got along though. I mean, well, actually, no, that's not true. We all hated Matt the first half of the episodes. He was like, he was out of his mind. Just he put so much pressure on himself. Like and he had a big ego, and he had to look like he was in charge all the time. Like he had to act like he knew everything, and he thought like the world's counting on me to solve this Bigfoot mystery. And he was just, you know, he was the only one that had a family at home, wife and kids, so he had to deal with that whole issue. And he was under so much stress he put on himself. He was just a dick. Like couldn't stand him. And then we had a long break after the China episode. He came back and whole new person. Like he was a new guy. He got off the Red Bull, and he used to get these Chinese German diet pills that were just like, it was like he was tweaking almost. You know, he'd be like, he'd eat a bunch of them. He'd drink 4 to 8 Red Bulls a night, and just get all jacked up, and he cut all that out, and he just came back and he was totally mellow.
You know, one thing I gotta say, because I've known you for a long time, man, you look good.
Well, thank you, Dave.
You've lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, like 100 Ps.
Was that hard to do?
That was the hardest thing I ever did.
Really?
Yeah.
And was it a health related?
Yeah. I had to flush all these toxins out of me.
How do you feel now?
Not that great.
No?
No, I feel, I get like vertigo and stuff, and like if I have any sugar, like if I eat something like I shouldn't eat, I get super jittery, shaky, and lose my balance and stuff.
I got a cake in there for dinner. You better be eating some for dinner.
I'm just gonna lay down tonight, so I don't have to worry about walking around in the woods at night.
Oh well. Hey man, I'm proud of you for losing that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, but I'd cut weight for wrestling and stuff, you know, in high school, and I used to compete like outer canoes, like Hawaiian style Polynesian canoes. I just did that, like national team and stuff. So like we had to cut weight for that, and so I'd done it before, but I hated it. And it was a lot easier when you're a teenager or 20s, but being in your 40s having to do that, it was. And I love food, man. I love to grub, and I just on the road. Well, what happened was we got on the road. I gained like 50 pounds because we just had snacks all the time, junk food, and like they fed us all. Like we ate like lasagna every night and stuff like that. And plus we were drinking beers all the time after we were done if we didn't have a night shoot. The crew just was. Those guys were all partiers, so we'd go to the bars, and I was sucking down, you know, like 3 to 8 pints a night of like microbrew beer. Just went.
So people don't know, but we've done conferences together. You came and did my conference.
Yeah, that was rad.
You had fun?
I was blown away by the UFO guys.
Oh yeah.
And I told people that was the best Bigfoot talk I ever saw was yours.
Really?
Yeah. People say like, oh, Dave's this and that. I said, you haven't seen his Bigfoot talk. It's awesome.
Well, thank you.
Because they thought I was going to be all missing people stuff. I said, no, it was a Bigfoot talk.
Well, thanks. So one question about your crew. I know in the early days when I used to watch your show all the time, Renee was always kind of the pessimist in the group.
Yeah. She represents the pessimists that watch. When we started the show, 75% of the viewers didn't believe in Bigfoot. And by the time we stopped it, it was like 60% of the viewers to 70% believed. But she always represented the people at home, like some husbands took his wife watch it. She's like, this is all bull. Why, those guys just believe everything, and then it's up to Renee to come in and go, even if she's wrong, like most times. She was paid to be wrong.
So that was a role she was playing?
She thinks they're like a spirit being. She thinks they're purely paranormal, like ghost kind of stuff, whatever. I don't know. She kind of, but she knows there's a real physical thing out. She thinks they can take physical form at times.
Okay.
But she doesn't say. But she can't say that on camera because then it's like they're all suckers. There has to be one person that's supposed to be level-headed. But really, Cliff's probably the most skeptical because there's been times she's like, "Oh, that," and we have to refilm it because she's like, "Oh, that's totally that." And Cliff's probably the biggest skeptic on the crew, actually.
Now, Cliff's an educated man.
Oh yeah, he was like a physics major, but he was just into music, so he switched to jazz guitar.
Yeah, he has a good education. Renee's educated as well.
She's got a bachelor's in science, fisheries.
And you?
Just not science, just political science.
You going to be an attorney?
I was thinking. That was the plan for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But
so, yeah, and I think that the audience doesn't really understand how educated that group is.
Oh, and Matt's got a Juris Doctorate. I mean, he graduated law school, and Matt's a genius. He's just moneymaker. Like he can be super abrasive. He can be a total pompous ass to people at times, but he's a good-hearted guy. Like he's very generous, and there's no one better at looking at maps and finding out where the Bigfoots are, reading contour maps and stuff. And he's got a gift for that.
Now, a lot of people don't know, but Cliff's probably one of your best friends.
Yeah, for sure.
And you guys do a podcast together.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
That's called Bigfoot and Beyond with Cliff and Bobo. We try to get into we want to get on like dogman witnesses and stuff like that, and paranormal stuff, UFO stuff, but it seems like we just mostly stick to Bigfoot for the most part. But you said you'll do it now coming up.
Well, you asked me like a year ago.
I called you a couple times, but you were busy or something. I don't know. You never called back.
Oh, well, yeah, well, I told you I'd do it. So,
I didn't want to pressure you, and then Joe's going to do it, so we got Montana Vortex Joe coming on.
Well, I think I'm going to wait for Joe to do it and see how badly you beat him up.
Pretty bad.
No, really, it'll be a good conversation with Joe now that
Yeah.
you've gone through the Vortex. You got to convince Cliff to get out here.
Yeah, we've had some great guests on there. We had this guy, oh my God, I forgot his name. He's an elephant expert from Africa, and he rediscovered the southernmost herd of elephants, the subspecies in South Africa. God, I can't remember the names. It's African words, but anyways, while he's been studying this, he was famous. He's got to remember the Born Free Lion Prides and the old people that had it. He was like that blonde surfer-looking guy that took over for them when they left. He was the guy that came in, and he was the guy that was the first guy to walk around with wild lions and hug them and all that stuff. You seen those? That's that guy. Well, he moved to South Africa to study. He grew up in the bush out there on like a game preserve. He moved to South Africa, and he discovered, now he's found the o-tang, which is a African Bigfoot, basically. But they say it's not a person, but I think it's like a Australopithecus. He's the ones he's seen him 4 times. His other assistants have seen him several times. The locals call him o-tangs, but no one really knows it. No one, he never talked to anyone else that had ever seen one. But he goes way out by himself, walks barefoot, quiet.
That's interesting because I have some South African people that watch my video page. In fact, a couple of them.
Gareth Patterson.
Garrett Patterson. Okay, so there's some South African police officers that watch, and they sent me an email that they were in a cave one time, and he looked up kind of through the outside of the cave. It was kind of those big open things, and he looked out and he saw something walking in that was huge, and he said, I never thought we had anything similar to like a Bigfoot. He goes, but that's what it had to have been because it was bipedal.
I know I went to school in Humboldt State with this woman, and she became a primatologist, and she did her PhD study over in Africa for a couple of years. and she saw 2 of them walk out, 4 to 5 foot tall, solid jet black, upright. She said not a hominid for sure. She said it was just an upright primate that walked completely bipedally, and she saw those herself. And
have you ever heard of Bigfoot sightings in South Africa?
yeah, I've gotten reports from and even like the out in East Libya and those places up there, like in the high deserts, those mountains. They got some big mountain ranges out there with some oases and stuff. And the geologists for the oil companies have had reports come out of there. So there's stuff over there. I mean, every continent but Antarctica.
Well,
but yeah, I just want to see what you think about this. So if they can like teleport and go invisible, and why are they digging in people's trash cans, eating garbage and stuff like that? If they could just go invisible and walk in a Safeway and grab a bunch of steaks.
That's a great question, because one of the best hair samples I ever got in Hoopa was the Ulubaris. I don't know if you know them. Raven.
Yeah.
Was heard something in the backyard, goes out and looks, and there's a Bigfoot leaning over one of their metal trash can areas, and it picks up 2 large white garbage bags and walks away with them.
Yeah.
So to your point, what are they doing?
Right.
And
well, I mean, I get reports from like the Four Corners area when they have super severe winters. And my buddy Hoyt, he was the director of law enforcement for the whole Hickory Apache Reservation. Hoyt's gone and checked it out, and they tear the whole outhouse down and go in there and eat the frozen waste.
Our waste?
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah. Like when it's really bitter cold winters, like drawn out long winter with like late spring, they've been known to go in and tear open outhouses and eat the scraps.
Have you ever heard that before?
I've heard it from a few different people. Yeah, all Navajos.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you ever, in any of your shows, did you ever work with the Navajo Rangers?
Yeah, I'm still in touch with a couple of them down there.
I want to meet those guys.
They're great.
I heard they're really good guys.
They're awesome. They're super cool. When I'd go down there, I'd take them to like 6, 7, 8 of them would come. I'd buy them all lunch. We'd get together and talk. And those guys, those are the guys. To me, those are the top outdoorsman guys, and like in an official capacity by far in the whole North America.
And one of the reasons I want to talk to them is because on the reservation, there's a lot of missing people.
Yeah.
A lot of it's criminal, as you know, because there's a lot of crime on reservations, but there's also a lot of things that are going on that nobody really will tell you or me about unless you know one of those people on the inside. That's how I got in with the elders in Hoopa through law enforcement, and that's why I'd like to meet the Navajo guys.
Those guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I wish I was just going to... I had some little anecdote for you. Never mind.
Yeah. Did they ever lead you guys into any good sightings or anything?
The places they told us to go were like further, like way out, like not near town where we were filming and stuff. But I actually I had a friend that was also a homicide detective for the Navajo Police Department, the Navajo Tribal Police, and there was a story that was going on in Window Rock and Four Corners area, like Ship Rock and all that.
Yeah.
That the 2 people were killed by a raging Bigfoot. They found the guy's torso and head thrown up on the roof of his hogan, those 8-sided.
Yeah.
And then supposedly 3 weeks later, a Bigfoot came in, and this old man and woman were watching TV, and he jumped up to try to push it out the door, and it just grabbed him by his head, lifted him in the air, and squeezed his head and popped it, and blood and brains went all over the roof and walls, and I was like hearing this, and they contacted me to try to kill him, like to get a team together to kill him, because they're not allowed to. They wouldn't do it. None of the Navajos would try to. So I actually got together some Navy SEAL guys I know that are out of the service now. And do you edit this at all?
No.
Oh, okay, I won't say then. Then my buddy's a sniper from the Green Berets. He was coming, and then Wally, the guy that paid for the DNA study, he was kicking in $30,000 for us to get the 2 sniper teams.
So did you validate that these deaths really occurred?
I spent a month down there.
Did you validate it?
Yes, they did. Everyone I was talking to said that they say the one body they didn't release for a month, and for natives, like they needed it back at a certain time for those ceremonies. and they were really upset about it.
Who wouldn't release it?
It was down in Albuquerque at the state or whatever, the forensic pathology lab, whatever, corners, and so.
Did you ever see any official reports on it?
I saw some stuff, but then anyway, my buddy couldn't say much, but then he transferred. Then he gave me the whole. But I went out there. What I found out was the guy had a heart attack. The one guy, and he had all these. Oh, and there was the big story was everyone had heard this too. There was a night for like 2 hours. There was just sounded like a war, just hundreds of gunshots down there. And they said the Bigfoots were coming up. They were shooting them. There was the people down there were shooting them.
But I thought the natives wouldn't shoot them.
If they were getting attacked, they would. They wouldn't go out and like try to hunt them.
No.
And so what I found out was the old man that got his head exploded was some tweaker. Like they're all related and whatever.
Yeah.
He broke in and the old man was fighting with him. And the shotgun went off and blew his head off. So the story that covered up was that he got his head squished by a Bigfoot, and then it turned out the other guy, when they got the DNA back, it was canid, and they figured out that it had been the dog. He had a heart attack, dropped, and the dog started. He had all the wild res dogs of that village were at they lived at his house, and in the back of the Hogan there were some old broken down trucks and stuff, and the dogs could jump up and then get on the roof of the Hogan. They'd walk around to the front where it was dropped off, so it looked a lot higher up. And they dropped one of the big dogs brought the head and torso up there and dropped it and shoot it up there. Then it snowed again and then froze again. So it looked like it had been thrown up there and landed. So that just been a guy with a heart attack. So, but that took a month to get to the bottom of that.
So when you were at my conference, you have a big fan base.
Not like you.
Oh, and a lot of attractive women are big fans of yours.
At a Bigfoot conference?
There were a lot that came for you, buddy.
There was. I always thought those were the UFO crowd.
No, that was you. So I'm sure all the ladies out there want to know: are you married?
No, but I have a significant other.
Yeah. What's his name?
Jerry.
Jerry is his name.
And there's Phil.
No. You really have a serious female significant other.
Yeah.
And how long you guys been together?
4 years now, four and a half, and then we were together for almost 5 years back in early 2000s.
I can tell you guys that she's a mystery woman because very few people have seen her.
Cliff knows her.
Cliff knows her?
Yeah.
Well, you got to invite her down to the next conference we go to.
I told you what her experiences with that was.
Go ahead, tell them.
I don't want to name names, but the first Bigfooters she met were off-putting.
So you took her to a Bigfoot event, and she met a couple of Bigfoot people who...
It wasn't even an event, it was just guys that I would go with sometimes.
And she didn't really like them.
She doesn't hate him or nothing, but she's just like, I don't want to waste my time with that. And she got really scared one night. We were up on below Monkey Ridge, up to Smith. And
beautiful spot.
Yeah, and it was just nuts. I was doing my calls. This was before I blew my vocal cords out and I could do loud ones. And these things started answering from way up further to the north. And we were sitting on the hood of the car. And it was funny, right about 10 minutes before that we were watching watching the satellites, and this one satellite went 90 degrees that way.
Satellites don't do that. Right.
So I guess it's UFO, but it was way up high. I think it was not associated at all. But so we're sitting there listening, and then it's like, but shriek. It sounded like the gates of hell opened. Like it.
She heard that?
Oh, yeah, we both did. It sounded like a horror movie, and then it sounded like there was 3 of them that came together and started coming down the mountain towards us, and I started going back, and it was echoing back up there. And they every time I did that, I do my aggressive call like the, and they just go like screaming, and they were getting close. They must have been 3 miles away when they started. We could hear them tearing down the mountain, coming towards us like a 45-degree angle down the hills towards us. And they got when they got about a mile away, she started flipping out, and I didn't blame her. And she was driving; it was her car. And I was like, "Just hang out. They'll stop at the tree line. Like we probably won't even see them, but And she was like, "No." And and then they got about a half mile away. And it was. I was scared, kind of, but I was excited. But I was kind of nervous because they sounded very. It was the most hostile I ever heard them. And she started driving away. I just ran and jumped in. And I said, just stop. Because she turned around because we were painted. So we're pointed the right way. If they come and they're aggressive, just drive straight out. And hell no, and she just gunned it out of there. So after that, and then a couple of years ago, we were up in Redwood National Park, and we had I'm not allowed to do Bigfooting stuff on our certain walks together. And I said, let me just do a couple of whoops. I was like, woo! Because she wouldn't let me do any howls. And I got 4, and I know they do like a lot of people think of wood knocks like they got huge hands and they're big mouths and they can that pop, they can do that. I can't do it very good, but this was definitely, because redwood, it's all softwoods out there. It's all evergreens like redwoods and spruce, and we hear this thunk, thunk, thunk. There's 4 knocks, like it sounded like a rock on redwood. Then I did 4 repeat, then it did 3 knocks, and I did 3 claps, and it did 2, and then I did 2, and then it did 1, and I did 1, and then it did 2, and then it skipped, and then it did 4. Didn't do the 3rd on the way, and I matched it, and then we walked further down. We got down to the creek where it crosses the creek, and I walked ahead, and I told her, I said, stay kind of near, because of you, I was like, stay near. And she was, my monkey was lagging because she was getting really old, my dog. So she was dogging up, and I was walking ahead, and I was, I didn't get more than 7 years away, but I saw monkey, I was looking back at monkey, she got all like her weird look, and my chick's face just goes, she got a big deep growl coming out of these berry thickets, like right there. There was one in there just right near her and started growling at her.
She ever seen one?
No.
She want to see one?
No. She'll go with me, but it's got to be scenic, and there's got to be something for her to do too besides.
So I'll throw an idea out for your next Finding Bigfoot episode. I think you ought to do one with the spouses. That would be an awesome episode.
We did have friends, and that was supposed to be one when we did in North Carolina, and Matt's son came, Cliff's brother came, Renee's cousin came, and then I had Bud, the Sublime drummer, come with me because my brother couldn't work. And
that's too bad.
Couldn't miss. Both my brothers worked, and they couldn't miss. And then my cousin, Crazy Frank, he was going to come, then he hurt his back. But yeah, that would. Well, Cliff's wife's really cool. She's into it.
Yeah, she runs their museum sometimes.
And Matt's wife's into it. And then Renee's significant other is not really at all. Then, I mean, my girl likes to travel. She likes the outdoors.
I think it'd be a great idea. It'd be kind of a behind the scenes.
You get production credit now.
Put me down.
Writer.
Yeah, there you go.
That is a good idea.
Thank you. Well, hey, we're about out of time, but I'm looking forward to being on your show.
Yeah.
And, we've gone a long time without seeing you, probably over a year, but it was kind of nice surprise visit out here in Montana. And
yeah.
Come back again.
Yeah.
And bring your significant other next time.
All right, Dave.
Hey, a pleasure. Thanks, man.
Thank you.